Let's move on to other news, and protests continue to rock the country of Lebanon for straight 3 months now, and with the growing pressure on the street, supporters of the Shia-dominated group Hezbollah and Amal also have joined the protest. Hundreds of young people on motorcycles waving their party and religious flags gathered in central Beirut and set fire to tires and cars. In return, the Lebanese police fired tear gas to disperse the supporters. This, when the nomination for the next prime minister has been postponed. Majority of the Christian parties have supported the candidacy of the former prime minister, Saad Hariri. Now, remember, Hariri is a Western ally and a pro-establishment politician. So the question is if the government is even listening to its people, because Hariri had to quit as the prime minister just 3 months ago after mounting pressure from the protesters. Now, people from Lebanon have been clear that they want a new government which is not affiliated with any established political party. As a nomination for a new prime minister has been postponed, new complications have erupted in Lebanon. The political situation in the country is also having a repercussion on its financial sector. Beirut is on the verge of an extreme food shortage as protests show no signs of abating.
ما شفنا بالحروب هالشيء هيدي ولا مرة شفت للبنان بتاريخه لا القديم ولا الحديث. هيدي الأزمة فعلا اللي عم بيحذروا من مجاعة مش عم بيبالغوا ممكن نحن نكون بلشنا نوصل على ناس بلشت تجوع.
And during a concert, people started shouting "Revolution" aloud when a former Lebanese PM entered the concert. He was also heckled by the concert goers in Beirut. United Nations has urged a probe into the excessive force against protesters. The UN Special Coordinator for Lebanon called for the identification of instigators of violence on Twitter and said, and I quote, "The violence and clashes over the weekend once again showed that postponement of the political solution of the current crisis creates a fertile ground for provocations and political manipulation." An interior minister for Lebanon has denounced the presence of masked men in civilian clothes joining security forces in violently attacking protesters. Lebanon has been gripped by a historic wave of protests since the 17th of October and amid anger against the government's failure to address the country's worst economic crisis since the civil war. Our West Asia Bureau Chief Daniele Pagani is now joining us live for more on this. And Daniele, a complex political situation in Lebanon. We believe that talks to name Saad Hariri, of course, as the Prime Minister have been delayed. And this even as there is a power-sharing arrangement that's in place for Christians, Sunnis and Shias, which is going to be, in a way, troubled by Hariri's possible rerun.
Absolutely, yes. In order to understand what is going on in Lebanon, we need to understand two factors. First of all, how dangerous is the economic situation in which Lebanon is. It is extremely dangerous. It has the third largest public debt in the world, despite being a very small country. Its GDP to debt ratio is 140%, which means that basically Lebanon is a failed state. The second element we need to understand is the composition of Lebanon. Lebanon is a very divided country in terms of sect, and sectarianism is always ready to ambush any movement of protest. Even the political structure of Lebanon is divided between the different confessions. The Prime Minister needs to be a Sunni Muslim, the President needs to be a Christian, and the Speaker of Parliament need always to be a Shia Muslim. This is the only way to keep all the communities appeased. But as we have seen on the street, on the ground, this doesn't always help. The power sharing doesn't happen on the ground, and sectarian tensions are always behind the bush, ready to attack every possible protest movement. The protests in Lebanon have been peaceful so far, and all the young people of Lebanon want to get rid of this sectarianism, beg your pardon. This is why they do not want any of the members of the current establishment to get back and form yet another government which wouldn't do any different from all the other governments. They are very responsive, they keep protesting every time something happens, but as a matter of fact, it seems to be impossible for Lebanon to find someone who's ready to be the Prime Minister.
Right, Daniele. Thanks very much indeed for joining us with the latest there. So very difficult at this point to find an alternative to Saad Hariri. Thanks for that. Well, moving on to news now.